For this part of the episode, we're talking to one of the most prominent, preeminent people about town, Phil Baker. Phil has really been a great guide for me in terms of introducing me to the city of Nanaimo, connecting me with people here. How did you kind of develop this level of connection with the people, particularly downtown, that kind of make up the fabric of Nanaimo?
Well, that is very, very esteemed company that you've put me in, Cam. You gassed me up, I think, a little too much, but it's really just being nosy, being interested. I think the ADHD goes a long way. I'm always like looking for novelty and new, interesting things that are going on in town, and we definitely have a lot more of that these days. Kind of as Nanaimo has a big influx of like newer, younger people. We have the university up the road. I think it creates a really lovely environment that fosters a lot of this stuff going on. So really, it's just like forcing yourself out of the house, coming off as a weirdo to some people, just walking up and say hi. But
It seems like this is something that is kind of really important to you, or a certain, a bee that's in your bonnet, is that there are a lot of cool things going on in Nanaimo, especially the last couple years. But you always feel like people could be more connected with them. They could be better advertised. There's a population that wants to do and see more things happening in the city. There's people putting on more things and new things in the city. How do you get those people together? This seems like something that has really preoccupied you lately.
well, I think a big part of it is just the influx of people and the explosion of the arts is still fairly new here. Some people might disagree, but I think it's definitely like exploded recently. And so in a lot of ways, the city is trying to catch up from like an infrastructure perspective. So, there are a few groups out there that are trying to increase busing options to town. We're working on like making housing a little bit more accessible. I think that was a big thing that brought so many people and artists here in the first place.
Compared to Vancouver, compared to Victoria,
Yeah.
housing was a little cheaper, a little more available.
Mm-hmm.
And so you, especially kind of in the core, and so you get kind of a concentration of people
Yes.
here.
And Nanaimo has a really lovely north end with some fantastic businesses, but oftentimes, unless you're driving, it can be a little tricky for the two communities to connect. And hopefully, with some of the changes that the city's making, with the pushes for more better transit and like more condensed housing, we'll start to see maybe even a few more downtown art hubs showing up, or the equivalent of downtown art hubs showing up.
More in the north.
Yeah.
Well, let's break down Nanaimo a little bit for a second. So, if people don't live here in the city, you've got the harbor,
Mm-hmm.
you've got the kind of two highways going through it. You've got the downtown in the south, you've got the north end,
Mm-hmm.
as you would expect, in the north, and a little bit of kind of development, subdivisions kind of heading a bit west, but it's mostly north-south, a lot of the folks in the city, right? The
So
population?
Nanaimo actually used to be about 5 different communities, and the trick is it's sort of a double-edged sword for us, where we have so much nature. We have like quite a few really lovely beaches here, and that's because we are mountain on one side and ocean on the other. So we don't have a lot of room to grow in certain directions like a city in the prairies would.
Yeah.
So that definitely doesn't help Nanaimo's case a lot of the time. Having a very long city, it can be a little bit of a trek to get across. So yeah, hopefully increasing those transit options, making transit a bit more efficient, will make those outlying areas a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So even way back when, I mean, like trying to catch a cab from the north end to downtown was like $90.
Yeah, and that's just realistically, it's going to be unfeasible
Yeah.
for most people. And so, what's that going to result in? It's people sticking where they are. It's people not kind of traveling and going experiencing things in different areas of the city. And as you say, it's a very long city. It's lengthwise versus a city that has kind of a clear center or a clear hub and things equidistantly radiating out from them, out from that core. It's going to be a lot quicker to get the average person
Yeah.
into the core and back out. But in a case like this, where it's a long strip, it's quite a ways to travel from one end to the other.
So that seems to be the trade-off, is either you pay a bunch of money and live downtown, or you live somewhere like right out here where there's a lot of lovely trees around, but if you don't drive, it's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the crucial things is how do we get people moving around the city, interacting with the city without having to hop in their cars, burn fuel, potentially like more people on the roads, everyone goes slower, and it's an investment of their time and focus that someone has to take on to hop in their car and go around, and obviously you need to be able to afford a car. So you're kind of pointing to the idea of maybe if we could improve bus service in Nanaimo, make it more frequent, run later, etc.
One of the many prongs, yes.
More movement.
Because if you don't provide those services, you are indirectly supporting drink driving, and we don't like that.
And I think that there's a concern always as well that if you treat the appearance of the problem rather than the root of the problem, you just end up with the problem in a different form or in a different place or at a different point.
Yeah, similar to a daisy growing through the cracks of the sidewalk.
Yeah, and I think a key thing that you've always kind of maintained is that, like, neighbors are neighbors. Your community is your community. It's not kind of, only the people I like or only the people that I think are upstanding or have money to spend and contribute in that sense. Like, these are, the people that live in Nanaimo, whether they live in a home, whether they live in an expensive home or a cheap home or no home at all. Ultimately, that's the community we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a great example of how quickly things can kind of sneak up on you. I mean, in the same week, I've had to find a new place to live. I've started a new job, so I'm in that awkward like pay period where, you don't get this one, you get the next one. At the same time, I have to drop like $500-ish on like getting a visa renewed. And yeah, it can quickly like just obliterate you. So,
Well, and the city's getting more and more expensive. We talked about the fact that it attracted people because it was cheaper than Victoria, cheaper than Vancouver, as those places skyrocketed, but it's being pulled along on that wave as well, in addition to being one of the fastest growing places in Canada in terms of population.
Yes. So gentrification is definitely like something you really have to be careful for in this scenario. So fortunately, there's a growing call amongst the people of Nanaimo to provide like meaningfully affordable housing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because sometimes that term is tossed around, and it's not, for a normal person, it is not truly affordable.
There's one luxury development in town that I can think of, and it had a unit available, and it was the affordable housing unit as dictated by the previous council. And so when I looked at how much rent was, it was still like $1,900 a month, no utilities included or anything like that. And that is so very much more than affordable for a lot of people.
Yeah, and does that make it hard to maintain kind of the existing community, the people that are part of Nanaimo or building it up or doing these interesting things in the city, when there's kind of, when it's hard for them to afford to stay, but at the same time there's demand. There's people who want to live on the island. The wealthier of them will pay more.
And so many instances, and we can see that in many cities all around the world, like the more down to earth, not necessarily like extremely wealthy, artsy types, they're the ones that kind of create those fun activities. A lot of people go to work, make tons of money, and then what happens when they aren't at work? They're consuming art, they're consuming, they're going to restaurants.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people forget that art is kind of like what makes life worth living in so many ways.
Yeah.
And so I think it would be a big shame if Nanaimo were to allow just the invasion and the covering up of that community with way too many like luxury condos that sit empty.
Yeah, so for kind of to make sure the community continues to be a venue for being a community and not a venue for just investment for its own sake. For
Yes.
instance.
You have to foster and nurture and, yeah, house that community.
So speaking of the north part of town, you have lived there in the past. You had a cafe there at a time. You kind of saw the front. You were kind of the front desk in a sense of parts of the North End. You know, seeing people come in every morning, talking to people there every day. What is your sense of what that area is like? You know, there's a lot of strip malls, there's a lot of just the highway going through, and then subdivisions and developments and kind of residential outskirt type of housing around the edges. It's more than that, though. What have you kind of seen from that area, and what do you think is developing there potentially?
I think what is developing there is a real hunger. The North End is a much newer part of Nanaimo, and as a result, it's a lot more like car centric than a lot more of the condensed areas in like the old city quarter.
It
And
wasn't originally part of the city proper. It was kind of an outlying
yes,
municipality at some
yes.
point, right?
So, like you mentioned, the giant highway, the strip malls, and and there's some good places in there as well. I'm not gonna tell you not to go check them out, but I think those are not where people want to spend their time as much anymore. And so the city is starting to slowly kind of like make it a lot more walkable, a lot more cyclist friendly. And yeah, I think just people are really slowly starting to appreciate that a lot more and get to know each other a little bit better, which is hard to do when you get into your car from work and then just drive home, you know?
Yeah, it's not, you don't necessarily need to see other people along your way.
Yeah.
And that's no disrespect to that's how people get around in many cases.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just in the aggregate, as we talk about with a lot of these things, it results in less of certain things. And in this case, some of those things are connection, are mingling, are kind of sitting together and getting introduced to each other and that sort of thing.
I think that's something that is kind of lost when you have to like take the bus, you have to be around people a lot. And, I've had so many like great conversations with people on the bus, on the train. And, sometimes you just want to put your headphones in, but that's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we? I don't want to keep you here too much longer, because we got to you at the end of the day. The bugs are starting to descend on us, but it's a beautiful temperature that we've got. We're in a good friend's backyard. Shout out to Keenan. And I think it's a peaceful environment after we both had a long day. But I want to ask you before we close out, what are some of the places that you want to recommend? The types of things that you think people should check out, not exclusively, because we'd be here the rest of the night and
so
we'd
much,
find our
so
skeletons
much.
in the morning after the mosquitoes if you listed every place that you know. But what are a few places that are maybe underappreciated or really worth checking out? You mentioned a few in the North End, but just citywide, what are a few you want to kind of suggest that people take a look at?
We have a lot of nature in town. So when I talk to a lot of tourists, I direct them to the classics like Westwood Lake and like Sugarloaf Mountain and all that fun stuff. I think we took a trip up there one day and scouted out the views. For downtown, places that are a bit underrated, I think honestly we have some of the best like vintage shopping considering our size. I've had so many people compliment me on all my clothes, and I'm just like, ooh, shout out to Rumors for that one.
But we got this from the dear departed Friends of Haven.
Funk Revival. We have Lucky Cloud that does a really amazing job curating some really fantastic pieces for up for sale, and they host events in their shop as well. Just another, I'm gonna go on a little tangent here, but this is a great example of how the citizens are actually like really hungry for events in town, because we haven't had like a proper new music venue in town in over a decade, kind of due to a lot of the laws and rigmarole that a lot of businesses have to jump through in order for that to happen. So we've seen a real explosion in some of our underground like dry spaces, because you obviously can't have alcohol at a lot of them. So like Sound Heritage is downtown is putting on shows right now. I've even been to like a sort of a ravey show in Spin Classroom.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I
Lucky
remember
Clouds
you told me.
doing Lucky Clouds doing yoga, sound baths, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, there's always stuff
So
at the vault, of course,
yeah,
which a
there's
lot of
always
people
stuff at the
probably don't know.
vault. Yeah, I think a lot of people assume the vault is just a cafe, but it has some really wonderful shows as well. The terminal, Queens, like I said, so many really awesome places that are putting on some fantastic shows. We're seeing a lot more representation in like visual art as well.
Yeah,
My friend Anna over at Flesh and Lines, she does some really fantastic work. We have Nightmare Oasis, which showcases a lot of like local art.
yeah.
It's really fantastic. It's a great sort of creepy, weird space to be in. It's really fantastic. I recommend that one as well.
Thank you for joining us. This has been Phil Baker, one of the kind of kindest and I think most active people in the city and especially in the core. So thank you for taking your time
Thank
to
you.
talk to me today.